So we'll start with the 8 prayers, but first I'd like to offer my humble obeisances at the lotus feet of my spiritual masters. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Gaura Karuna Swarupaya Radha Krishna Prastayate Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Vancha Kalpatribhyascha Kripasinubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Can we bring up Chaitanya Das, please? Bring up the harmonium. Thank you. All glories to the Shri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years together. It extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge, and it increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and gives us a pure taste of that eternal nectar for which we are always anxious. My Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction upon the living being. And thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna, Rama, Govinda, El Shaddai, Jehovah, Allah, Damodar. And in each of these holy names you have invested all of your transcendental potencies. Aren't even any hard and fast rules for the chanting of these holy names. Oh my Lord, you've so kindly made approach to you easy by your holy names. But I am so fallen, so lost, so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One can chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, feeling oneself to be lower than the straw in the street, more tolerant than the tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, ready to offer all respects unto others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I want for the company of beautiful women, nor do I long for any number of followers. What I want only is that I might have your loving devotional service in my life, birth after birth after birth. Son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servant. But even though I am so, somehow or other, I've fallen into this dark ocean of material birth and death. Please, therefore, please lift me up. Lift me up from this ocean of death and place me as but an atom of dust upon your lotus feet. My Lord, when will my eyes be filled with tears of love, flowing constantly while I chant your name? When will all the hair on my body stand on end, and my voice choke up husky with love for you, from the mere recitation of your holy name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a single moment to be like 1,000 years or more. Tears are rolling down my cheeks like torrents of rain. Everything in this world is vacant, empty, useless in the absence of you. I don't know anyone except you, dear Krishna, as my Lord. And you shall always remain so. Even if you should handle me roughly when you embrace me, you may break my heart by not being present before me. You may save me or you may slay me outright. You may feed me or you may make me starve. You may do whatever you like because you, and only you, can do anything and everything. But you are always my worshipful Lord, unconditional. So today begins our celebration of the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Please turn on your cameras if you have them, if you can. I appreciate it. Today, I'm going to read a little bit from chapter 18, but I felt so guilty about not having anything about Lord Chaitanya scheduled. I managed to come across something that I'd also like to share with you after we get partway through chapter 18. So please stick around for that. You can hear me okay, everyone? No problem? Just want to make sure? Okay, good. HARIBOL. Chapter 18 of the Nectar of Devotion. The character of one in ecstatic love. Srila Rupa Goswami next describes the characteristics of a person who has actually developed his ecstatic love for Krishna. These characteristics are as follows. First, he is always anxious to utilize his time in the devotional service of the Lord. He does not like to be idle. He wants service always, 24 hours a day, without stop, without deviation. Second, he is always reserved and perseverant. And he is always detached from material attraction. Fourth, he does not long for any material respect in return for his activities. He doesn't care if he's respected or rejected, if he's glorified or minimized, put down, doesn't matter. He is always certain that Krishna will bestow his mercy upon him. Always. Always certain that Krishna will bestow his mercy upon him, no matter what. He is always very eager to serve the Lord faithfully. He is very much attached to the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. His eighth characteristic is that he is always eager to describe the transcendental qualities of the Lord. And finally, he's very pleased to live in a place where the Lord's pastimes are performed. For example, Mathura, Vrindavan, or Dwarka. The utilization of time. An unalloyed devotee who has developed ecstatic love for Krishna is always engaging his words in reciting prayers to the Lord. Within his mind, he is always thinking of Krishna. And with his body, he either offers obeisances by bowing down before the deity, or he engages in some other service. During these ecstatic activities, sometimes he will shed tears. In this way, his whole life is engaged in the ecstatic service of the Supreme Lord, without even a moment wasted on any other engagement. Perseverance. When a person is undisturbed, even in the presence of various causes of disturbance, that person is called reserved and perseverant. An example of this perseverance and reservation is found in the behavior of King Parikshit, as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto. The king says there to all the sages before him, at the time of his death, "My dear Brahmins, you should always accept me as your surrendered servant. I have come to the bank of the Ganges just to devote my heart and soul unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. So please be kind and bless me. Bless me that Mother Ganges may also be pleased with me. Let the curse of the Brahman's son fall upon me. I do not mind. I request only that at the last moment of my life, all of you will kindly chant the holy names of Vishnu, so that I may realize his transcendental qualities. This example of Maharaj Parikshit's behavior is his remaining patient even at the last point of his life, his undisturbed condition of mind. These are examples of his reservation, his reserve, and is one of the characteristics of a devotee who has developed ecstatic love for Krishna. Detachment. The senses are always desiring sense enjoyment. But when a devotee develops transcendental love for Krishna, his senses are no longer attracted by material desires. This state of mind is called detachment. There is a nice example of this detachment with the character of King Harata, spoken of in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where it is stated, Emperor Bharat was so attracted by the beauty of the lotus feet of Krishna that even in his youthful life he gave up all kinds of attachments to family, children, friends, kingdom, and so forth, as though they were untouchable pieces of stool. Emperor Bharat provides a typical example of detachment. He had everything enjoyable in the material world, but he left it all. This means that detachment does not mean to artificially keep oneself aloof and apart from the allurements of attachment. Even in the presence of such allurements, if one can remain unattracted by material attachments, then that person is called detached. To go out to the desert and say, I am detached, I don't care for wealth or fame or power, in a place where there is no wealth or fame or power, this is not as good as being in the midst of wealth and fame and power and still being detached from it, not caught up in it. In the beginning, of course, the neophyte must try to keep himself apart from all kinds of alluring attachments. But the real position of a mature devotee is that even in the presence of all allurements, he is not at all attracted. This is the actual criterion for detachment. Pridelessness. When a devotee, in spite of possessing all the qualities of pure realization, is not proud of his position, that person is called prideless. In the Padma Purana, it is stated that King Bhagirath was the emperor above all other kings, and yet he developed such ecstatic love for Krishna that he became a mendicant, and he went out begging, even to the homes of his political enemies and untouchables. He was so humble that he respectfully bowed down before them. There are many similar instances in the history of India. Even very recently, a couple hundred years ago or less, one big landlord that was known as Lal Babu a landholder in Calcutta, became a Vaishnava and lived in Vrindavan. He was also begging from door to door, even at the homes of his political enemies. Begging involves being ready to be insulted by those to whose home one has come. That is natural. But one has to tolerate such insults for the sake of their service to Krishna. The devotee of Krishna can accept any position in the service of Krishna. Great hope. The strong conviction that one will certainly receive the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is called in Sanskrit asabandha. Asabandha means to continue to think, because I am trying my best to follow the routine principles of devotional service, I am sure that in spite of all my failures, in spite of all of my shortcomings, I will go back home, back to Godhead, by Krishna's grace. In this connection, there is a prayer by Rupa Goswami that exemplifies this hopefulness. He says, I have no love for Krishna, nor for the causes of developing love of Krishna. Mainly hearing and chanting, and the process of bhakti yoga, by which one is always thinking of Krishna and fixing his mind upon his lotus feet. This is also lacking in me. As far as philosophical knowledge or pious works are concerned, I don't see any opportunity for me to execute these things. But above all, I am not even born in a nice family. And therefore I must simply pray to you, Gopijana Ballava, which means Krishna, the maintainer and beloved of the gopis. I must simply pray to you, and I simply wish and hope that by some means or another I may be able to approach your lotus feet. And this hope is giving me pain, because I think myself so incompetent to approach that transcendental goal of life. How can I possibly attain it? The purport is that under this heading of asabandha, one should continue to hope against hope, that some way or other they will be able to approach the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. In spite of my sinfulness, in spite of my unworthiness, in spite of my inability to do anything that's pleasing, nevertheless, I am hoping against hope that you will have mercy upon me. This is the prayer of the devotee. Eagerness for achieving the desired success. When one is sufficiently eager to achieve success in devotional service, that eagerness is called samutkanta. This means complete eagerness. Actually, this eagerness is the price for achieving success in Krishna consciousness. Everything has some value, and one has to pay that value before obtaining or possessing it. It is stated in the Vedic literature that to purchase the most valuable thing, love for Krishna, one must develop intense eagerness for achieving success. This intense eagerness is very nicely expressed by Bilvamangala Thakur in his book Krishna Karnamrita. He says, "I am eagerly waiting to see that boy of Vrindavan, whose bodily beauty is captivating the whole universe, whose eyes are always bounded by black eyebrows and expanded like lotus petals, and who is always eagerly glancing over his devotees, and therefore moving slightly here and there. His eyes are always moist, his lips are colored like copper, and through those lips there comes a sound vibration which drives one madder than a mad elephant. I want so much to see him in Vrindavan." So we'll stop there. Before going on, are there any questions regarding this, what we've just shared? No questions? Okay. In that case, I will clean my reading glasses and share with you a very nice passage from this book. Where am I here? About why Lord Chaitanya appeared. The central reason for the Lord's appearance, however, is to deliver the pious, to bring pleasure to his devotees. Krishna and his pure devotees enjoy a reciprocal relationship. They are bound in love. The devotees act for Krishna, and Krishna acts for his devotees. It may even be said that Krishna is the devotee of his devotees. This principle reaches perfection in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appears as God in the guise of the perfect devotee. It is said that in this particular form, the Lord appears for two distinct reasons. One is external, and one is internal. The external reason is simply to inaugurate the Yuga Dharma, or the prescribed method of God realization for the current epoch. This prescribed method is Harinam Sankirtan, or the congregational chanting of the names of God, and the distribution of his name to others. The promulgation of this Sankirtan mission is specifically noted in his Navadvip Leela, or the Lord's early pastimes. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the topmost combined expression of Radha and Krishna, here in Navadvip, Mahaprabhu primarily played the role of Yuga Avatar, establishing among the prominent Vaishnavas of Navadvip the appropriate method of meditation for this age, the congregational chanting. In Navadvip Leela, moreover, he manifests the traditional role of the avatar, revealing many celestial forms and miraculous deeds. In this way, he unequivocally displayed his divine status, at least for his intimate associates. However, this was merely his secondary role. During his early Navadvip period, his primary identity as Srimati Radharani had remained largely unexhibited, suppressed, and it was instead mainly exhibited by Gadadhar Pandit, his intimate associate. Later in Puri, Mahaprabhu was totally gripped by Radha Bhava, while Sri Jagannath, the deity, was Krishna himself. But it was in Navadvip that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first manifested his strong desire to spread the Sankirtan movement with its concomitant message of love of God. Although the people of the world did not fully realize this inundation until the 20th century, and until the time of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the process was masterfully inaugurated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, who, in the 16th century, personally succeeded in spreading the Sankirtan movement throughout the Indian subcontinent and set up the substantial philosophical and cultural foundation to spread it throughout the universe. Mahaprabhu preached his doctrine of divine love with great fervor and vitality. In fact, his form is the embodiment of this love manifest by Lord Krishna's internal desire to experience the spiritual love of his great devotee, particularly Srimati Radharani, the Lord's divine pleasure potency. This, it is said, is the internal reason for Mahaprabhu's descent. By personally taking on the mood and complexion of Srimati Radharani, Krishna desired to taste the love that Radharani has for him. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the highest expression of this experience. Actually, this internal reason for Mahaprabhu's descent is also broken down into three related subdivisions. Number one, Krishna wanted to experience the greatness or depth of Radharani's love for him. Number two, he wanted to experience the sweetness of this love from Radharani's perspective. And number three, he wanted to experience the distinct bliss that Radharani achieves by virtue of engaging in his service. It may be argued that God, Krishna, is already omniscient, and if this is so, then why should he make any extraneous endeavor to realize these internal truths about his own self-existent nature? The Vaishnavas respond to this, however, saying that Mahaprabhu is not an extraneous manifestation of God. Rather, he is an alternate feature of the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, Krishna's descent as Mahaprabhu is merely an expression of the methodology by which he realizes the sweetness of his devotees' love for him. It is not that the Lord has to make some kind of external endeavor. Mahaprabhu is that eternal form of the Lord by which he internally experiences these esoteric truths. In essence, the manifestation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu teaches us something confidential about nothing less than the true nature of God Himself and His experience. Krishnadas Kaviraj takes it even further in the Chaitanya Charitamrita and adds another dimension to the Lord's internal reason for descending upon the earth. He says the Lord's desire to appear was born from two reasons. One, he wanted to taste the sweet essence of the mellows of love of God, as exhibited by Srimati Radharani. And he wanted to propagate devotional service in the world on the platform of spontaneous attraction, or Raganuga. And thus, he is known as supremely jubilant and the most merciful incarnation of all. These two internal reasons are described as the main causes of the Lord's descent. Having described something of Krishna's desire to experience the love of Radharani, we'll now focus on the second, often neglected internal reason for his descent, namely to establish the glorious path of Raganuga Bhakti. For sincere practitioners of devotional service, this path is approached with as much caution as enthusiasm. Raganuga Bhakti, Raganuga is the path of emotion, ecstatic love. Since it is coveted and very difficult to achieve, the goal is to reawaken our lost relationship with Krishna by emulating a Ragatmika Bhakta, or an eternally purified being in the kingdom of God. Consequently, a prudent word of caution should be offered. Few in this age of Kali have the honesty and spiritual acumen to execute this path perfectly or properly. Therefore, great contemporary acharyas like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada have recommended a slow, methodical progression following the rules and regulations of Scripture, or Vidhi Bhakti, as the path most suitable for the masses of people. Although often subtle and inadvertent, the cheating propensity, subtle and inadvertent, we don't mean to cheat, but we do, is a factor in many people's spiritual lives. And so, the common accoutrements of Raganuga Bhakti, such as Sita Pranali, the process of initiation and living near Radha Kund, the most sacred holy place, are generally discouraged by wise representatives of genuine disciplic lineages. This is not because these elements of Raganuga Bhakti are wrong. They are not wrong. But because they are generally embraced by those who are not ready for such an advanced stage of spiritual life. In fact, sages have declared that those who prematurely go to live at Radha Kund, the lake of Radha, will instead experience Narakakund, or the lake of hell. Nonetheless, when one actually reaches the level of Raganuga, he is fulfilling the real manobishtam, or internal desire of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that we gradually attain to the level of spontaneous attraction. This is why Lord Chaitanya appeared, and this is the goal of our lives, to attain that Raganuga Bhakti platform for real, not pretending, but to actually attain that platform of spontaneous love for real. Thank you for letting me share this with you. I feel very unqualified to be reading this and sharing this with you, but I found it so interesting, these various amazing internal understandings of who God is and how he thinks and why he does what, that I wanted to share with you. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All glories to Lord Chaitanya. All glories to Lord Chaitanya. All glories to Lord Chaitanya. All glories to the assembled devotees. Haribol. If you have any questions, now is the time. Any questions? I have to put on my computer glasses so I can see you. I don't see any hands raised. I don't see any microphones on. Oh, Ambet. Yes, sir.
Two things are discouraged, living at Radhakund and process of initiation. Could you explain that further?
No, I'm afraid I can't. Guru, the idea, as I understand it, is that one should not be taking on initiating devotees unless they are truly qualified to initiate devotees, initiate disciples. A lot of people tend to, they think that if, they are sannyas or they are somewhat renounced or whatever, that they start to take on devotees and giving them initiation. And this is not a good idea. And living at the most holy place, Radha Kund, living any place where you are not qualified, living in any holy place if you are not qualified to be holy, this is not a very good idea either, because we have a tendency to cheat. We have a tendency to fall down. We have a tendency to be insincere. And if we live in a place that is just buzzing with this holy spiritual energy, and we're committing all kinds of sinful activities while trying to fool the general populace into thinking that we're something we're not, holier than thou or whatever, then we just dig our own grave, as it were, commit offense, and completely screw up our devotional life. That's about the best I can do on that for you. It isn't further explained in the book, so just be careful before you take on any disciples, Ambed. Hare Krishna.